Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Hey, Miguel Iturrate back here on the Lights Out podcast. We are on assignment. The MMA detective is with me. Chris Lytle is on the road, but we have another deep dive interview. And Mike, we're in heady territory. We're talking about a legend here, Vladimir Matyushenko. Like wrestling and MMA. Few guys have that total package together like this guy did throughout his MMA career. Very underrated in my estimation. And I'm looking forward to talking to him, Vlad. How are you?
Guys, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Seems like you're still getting settled there, Vlad. Do you want us to wait a minute or are you good?
Are you see me all right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Fine.
So
just in light here or whatever. But yeah.
So Vlad,
yes.
For those of you at home that don't know, he's actually the beginning of the Russian invasion. Like when people start talking about the Dagestanis and, the people from the Soviet bloc, it started with Vlad, like first and foremost. And it's not just like he came from Russia. We're looking at a guy that immigrated to the United States and from there really endeared himself in the wrestling community. And from there, wound up in a title fight in the UFC. So we're going to talk about his journey. So Vlad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
So let's start from the beginning. Vlad, your wrestling credentials. I heard there's a couple things that stand out on them. Why don't we talk about your wrestling beginnings, the Soviet system, and how you came up within it?
Well, I won't say I'm such a big accomplisher like you trying to promote me.
Huh.
Underrated, I don't think so either. I think people give me credit for what I deserve, but I deserve much more. Yes. Did I do it more? No. My fault. I was chasing the dream, but that's okay. We can start right there. Same with wrestling. I started wrestling at the age of 10, small town in Belarus. At that time, I was part of the Soviet Union. Not fun place to be necessarily, small town, even like United States. If you take Iowa or somewhere small town, 40 years ago, what to do? What are you going to do? Wrestle. Also, if you brought it up, Soviet Union, Russia invasion, it was not fun. Like they trying to brainwash you right from beginning with in schools and stuff. Not brainwashing necessarily, but political aspect was kind of a big part of it. Big or good chance to get away from all that crap, be an athlete. Nobody will touch you. You just have VIP ticket to go anywhere you want. If you're a good athlete, you're a celebrity, everybody respects you and leave you alone. So that kind of was my motivators. My motivators are the ones where you can travel, you can see stuff. Those are my motivators. Okay. Another one too, bullies. Uh-huh. Yeah, you're getting beat up and stuff like that, and you have extra energy. You have to learn how to defend yourself. And even then, you said my first MMA fights were before I even started wrestling. It was a reason because I started wrestling. As far as accomplishments, I started very quick. There was a goal for me to join prep school, which was common in the Soviet Union and Russia. Still probably right now, when you have like a boarding school, when you can train 2 or 3 times a day, you go to school for a couple hours, and while you rest, and you go to train for a couple hours, you come back and go to school again, and something like that. So it was very structural for that kind of fun.
Okay, but how difficult was it being a child and being in that type of system where you're taken from your family and it's school workout? Was there any supervision? Was it kind of like jail for kids? Were kids preying on other kids? What was the atmosphere like in a building like that?
Absolutely not. First of all, nobody forced you to do that. You choose to do that. It was my goal. It was my
at 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only choosing one to go. It's kind of like going to being admitted to Harvard or or Yale, or you'd be like, okay, cool, I made it.
Okay.
Not everybody could make it, Most of the people could make it. Very small percentage.
How was the social life inside the place? Was it very strict and structured? Were parents looking over you? How did that go?
Parents were not there. That's what I like it too. In that case, you give a lot of parents. My parents were in a different town. I had a coach, I had teachers, but coach was my main mentor. And, we put wrestling first, school second.
That's not a bad thing. All right. So we started the interview. Migo, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you have a good coach, I think that's one of the ideas. That's different than the American system, where you have a coach that you're with every day at the academy, and you're kind of practicing. The Americans seem to rush things, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the coach is a mentor, and we had a main coach, which is you see her every day, which is check on you. How do you sleep? What kind of books you read? What kind of movie we watch? We kind of go together, hold hands, and training. But other coaches, who knows, for instance, like knows certain moves better than other ones. It's totally okay to go and join that team. And we were traveling like that specifically for those reasons. And I was training on Kafkas with Khabib Prom, and with those coaches we interacted, because somebody can have better accomplishments. We at age of 15, I was already training with Olympic team. I was a sparring partner with guys. Of course, they getting beat up, but also they were mentoring me and helped me. And my main coach would, at the end of the day, will ask you, okay, dude, so how was it? You did this, this, and this. You can do this better. So we kind of like
very important. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And that main coach who stays you for more than a few years. So that way, he can see results in the long run. I think that's an advantage of the system, where in a short term, you only can get so much, But
okay. So Vlad, I'm going to kind of take you to task here. I think people need to understand the type of individual you are. So you started this with, I didn't accomplish much with wrestling. I should have done better. But at the age of 18, Kevin Jackson from the United States Olympic team wins a gold medal. You beat him as an 18-year-old, his gold medal year. And I think you also beat Dave Schultz, who obviously a little past his prime, but still a legendary person in your country. Like, both of those things probably made the front page of your sports section.
Okay, I agree with you that you can be created, appreciated. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm hard on myself. I'm just saying, yes, I showed those wrestling matches and those wins to show me that I'm able to go far. I'm in that level, and I'm, whatever you call it, talent or whatever. But again, my mental stage was not ready for, and I was too much in a hurry, I guess, to chase result, instead of realize what I did right, what I did wrong. Well, which is okay. Every young person does it.
Wow. But don't you think that's kind of the championship mindset? The minute you settle down and enjoy a result, you're not working for your next opponent. Like, that is kind of something that I've noticed, especially like in the communist countries, that they're very specific with, like, never mind your victory, next. Do you think that may be a part of that mindset, maybe?
Yes, that too. But also, don't forget, at that time, and end of 80s and beginning of 90s, Soviet Union fell apart. Mm-hmm. Instead of being part of Soviet Union, I was part of Belarus and Russia, Ukraine, all the stuff separate, Georgia. And in my head, some fighters or wrestlers were treated better than others. And I'm like, screw you guys. And, all the chaos, political and economical, I was not happy with it. That affect my performance, I guess. My head was already gone. I was already in the United States. As soon as first time I think I came United States, wrestled dual meets and tournament, which is, I think that's why I'm in the United States. I beat Dave Schultz in a tournament at Sankis Kids. And as soon as I saw that one, how people live and how people talk, and I'm like, I'm out of that's my place to leave. And
really? How much different was it? Like, could you give us an example?
An example that.
Well, you said you're from Belarus. Like when the countries
Yes.
broke up, Belarus and Belarus is, well, especially in the 90s, was needed to build up. It was rough living there. Can you describe what that was like?
Yes, I can.
You have to share.
To make living.
This is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. Okay.
I didn't complain much, but I mean, to make living for me, and I did it again thanks to wrestling. I was in the military at the time, so I couldn't get the rank. Some of my friends already retired and get the made with major or colonel, even whatever, and I can go that route, or I can go the criminal route. Some of the guys were join both, being the cop and criminals. But again, it's not a happy life. And a lot of my friends, when I was already in the United States, they pretty much died. They get shot, they get arrested, so that's how rough it was. And I did the right thing to get the hell out of it.
So Vlad, what was explained to me was when Russia fell, you had their secret service, and then you had their criminals. And in essence, what took place was they got in bed together and they started running the country. Would you say that's an accurate description of what took place when the Soviet Union fell?
Absolutely.
Wow.
So now you're in America. How did you get from there to America? Did you defect, or did you go through the visa process, or? And then we'll talk about more fun stuff.
Yeah, this is dude, Vlad, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I didn't think we were coming this hot. This is like, you're giving us a really incredible glimpse into your life, and man, we appreciate it. Go ahead, please go ahead.
Yes, pretty much defected, if you want to call it.
Really?
I wrestled with first dual meet. I was supposed to wrestle with Royce Alger in Kansas City. We came to
How'd
New
you
York.
do against Royce?
Nice friend of mine, and he also helped me to stay. And then, anyways,
okay.
We
Wait. Did you beat Royce?
Oh yes, twice.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, go ahead.
But
again, he was a good friend of mine, and he was good, I'll say, sparring partner and somebody to look after. So I already knew him from my previous matches. And when I didn't really decide to stay. What happened is we as a team, Belarusian team, we dare to ask for our per diem from coaches, which was already paid by U.S. coaches to them or whatever, they denied it, that they get paid. And some of our Russian-speaking, American teammates would tell us that they did. And some teammates, which was not necessarily my idea, they decide to, let's go on a strike. Either I have to give us our per diem money tonight, or tomorrow we're not going to wrestle. The whole team voted for, they choose me as a spokesman, I guess.
Oh, no. You don't do. Okay, go ahead.
And we get the head coach into the room, and we give us a, American way, right? Strike. We give us a ultimatum or whatever you said. He's like, what are you guys talking about? What money? You guys have a big match tomorrow. Go to room, go sleep. We said, no, please listen to us. And I was spoken to him. And
were you alone, or was your team with you at the time?
Team was in the room, all 12 people, all waited.
Well, then that's it then. Okay, so you guys are unified. It's not like
we unified.
you into. It's not like they sent you in a room and then they go, "Oh, we had no idea
No,
what he's
no,
talking
we're
about."
all together.
Okay.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Then head coach said, "What are you talking about? Who's not going to wrestle tomorrow? Hands up." And just like I talk to you right now, I look back and I already saw one hand.
Oh no!
Oops.
So
Yeah. Nobody.
That was a big oops.
Man.
Yes, and on my friend, the one hand was his name Vladimir Matyushenko. He lives in Chicago now. Become good friends, best friends. And the coach said, "Well, you two, you fired. You're not going anywhere. You're going home. I'm gonna keep your passports, and you're pretty much done. Your career is over."
Wow. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot for kind of forced to stay.
Then they changed their mind and they say, "Well, we can maybe forgive you if you continue to wrestle through the tour." And we kind of like go along with that. We went to Kansas City. I went straight to Royce's room. It was like maybe knock in his room. He's all sleepy. What happened? I'm like, "Royce,
wait. Do you speak English at all at this time?
No, I said, me, stay here." He's like, so he called Schultz, Dave Schultz, and Dave came and, they kind of advised me if I decide to stay, maybe a good idea to go to college first, junior college. But first I need my passports. I'm like, okay, cool. I will hang out with you. And then, because we didn't have a passport, we have to finish a tour. We went to.
Wait. So, and I apologize, but I can't let this slide.
No problem.
So you show up at what? You don't speak English. Royce doesn't speak Russian. What made you want to go to his room?
Well, I trust him. Even if we're opponents, even if we wrestle against each other, but I trust the guy.
Isn't that wild?
That's that fight camaraderie that
Chael Sonnen has got a relationship. Miguel, we can't hear you, but Chael Sonnen's got a relationship with a Japanese guy that goes by Stun Gun, and Stun Gun stays at his house, like introduces him to his mother, and they don't speak each other's language, and only a bond like that can exist against just combat sports like competitors. That's amazing. So you defect with Royce. Who do you go home with?
What do you mean?
When you leave the hotel, you don't go to Russia.
I leave hotel. I mean, we went. I continue my tour with the team. I trying to get my passport. The coaches said, "You get your passport at the end of the tour."
No, that's
we went
when
to
they
Kansas
hammer
City,
you.
then we went to Phoenix, Arizona. We went back to New York. At the end, they said, "No, you guys not getting shit. You're not getting a passport. You're gonna go back to Russia, and you're done." I told them, "Well, I'm staying here, passport or no passports."
Yeah.
And they try to bully us. They say, "Well, they're going to be arrested. You're going to be put in jail, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Nope, I'm staying." And then Royce gave me a number to call, and he actually did summer camps that summer with the Lawson College with the coach Rex Branham. And Dave advised me that junior college is going to be super easy. Don't worry. You're going to take some classes. You're going to learn language. And I'm like, okay, I didn't have time.
So where did you stay at that point?
Well, we didn't stay nowhere. We had enough money to buy a bus ticket from New York to Reno, Nevada on the Greyhound. We have our bags. We have a couple, maybe $100 each. Done. One-way ticket.
You're hanging out at the bus terminal, which, kind of, I mean, there's a lot we can say there, but, we're going to forego that. You're hanging out at the bus terminal, then does like a college coach come grab you, or like who
as a matter of fact, we went there through all United States on the bus, looking through the window, and I'm like, shit, I don't know where I'm going. And as it goes to like through Wyoming, Utah, there's nothing up there. I'm like, wow. Then we come to Reno, nobody pick us up, no one. We just sit there in the bus station, and we're like 1 hour pass, 2 hour pass. I'm like, shit. And there was no cell phones or anything to call anybody. From the payphone, you call so much. you know, if I call Royce again from the payphone and he doesn't speak English, what I'm gonna say. It was kind of a scary moment for a second.
Dude, you risked everything. You risked everything. So what coach or what person in the wrestling community steps in and begins to help
it was a Rex Branham from Lawson College. He was a head coach at the time. The problem was they thought we were arriving at the airport. They went to airport and looked for us, and we're looking, and I was staying on a Greyhound bus.
Yeah, took me 28 days, but I'm here. Right.
No, they found it like in the maybe 2.5 hours. They found us. They called Royce. He called, you know, check bus station. We found it, or whatever it happened. But yeah, we took to little town Susanville, and again, good chapter in my life and chapter in MMA career, because again, and adapting to the United States, because was not a lot of Russian speaking people there, like in New York or something. It was a small little town, but Rex, head coach, was recruiting kids from all over the country, from Chicago, from Phoenix, from Nevada, from Iowa, anywhere. And he had a good system because it was 2-year college. So anybody who could make 4-year school, and he had a good relationship with Oklahoma State, Iowa, Northwestern, he would take the kids who can make either academically or financially, or some guys have a criminal record. That's why we had the guys like Rampage and those guys in the team, those talented guys who were actually Rampage get in fights in the room because the guys were like rough.
It was Rampage in the room. He didn't like sparring hard, and he didn't like practicing hard. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And he openly saying it. I don't like to train guys. I don't know why you like it so much. I'm just here to get better for the fight. But he was talented. He was there, but he didn't hide it. But yeah, he didn't like.
He would complain about it. Yeah, we had one of his old teachers, Brian Garrity, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I got Rampage talking to me. You know, he's in Japan on TV. Hey, man, so and so is going a little hard. Would you mind saying something to him?" And I'm like, "I'm 145 pounds. I got to go talk to him." I mean, he's a character, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyways, and also travel because that team and the head coach and we were winning 4 years in a row the national championship. So we were traveling all over the United States, back to Phoenix, back to Chicago, back to Seattle, and it kind of helped me to coach, to see different things. And also helped that that's little town, Susanville, that's where Ken Shamrock from. And all the local guys in the bars and everybody like, yeah, Ken, let's watch these fights. And I'm like, well, what's this, the fights? And I'm like, yeah, I think I can do it. And we can start training over there, you know, in addition to wrestling, because of course there was submission and some guys knew the leg locks and kickboxing, stuff like that. So we start doing it. And yeah, that was kind of like my lead. Yep.
So did any of your old Russian teammates ever reach out to you, apologize, or give any type of what was said?
It was weird first. Some of the guys apologized almost instantly, you know, right after they say, you know what, sorry, I was just chicken out. I shit my pants. And some of the guys till this day pretend nothing happened. They pretend they were right. They're like, what are you talking about? What, you know, whatever. So it's up to person, you know, it's what you're gonna live with.
Yeah,
I'm not blaming anybody.
Wow.
Are you able to hear me, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me ask you, because you know we know that the system you came from can be very tough. Did your family back in Belarus did they bother them, or you know, if you don't want to talk about it too, that you don't have to, but that would
no. And it's not because they were such a nice guys. I think at that time they have their own problems. The difference between Russia and Belarus now and then, that now they're more stable and more fresh, you know, like on the fight. Back then, everybody was fucked up. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
Including government officials. They didn't know what's going to happen. So it's not like they were cool, but they really I was like little fish in a big pond for them. So they didn't care. They don't care how.
So your first MMA team that I can find that you worked out with was the Raw team. Was there any teams prior to that?
No, like I said, I was training in Susanville with local guys, fans of Ken Shamrock, I would say, and also I trained with my teammates from wrestlers, which were good guys like Rampage, and there was a bunch of them there, Anthony Johnson, and I was wrestle every day, twice a day, so I have plenty of that. We were running around. As far as MMA team, the whole thing was so new. Just to get there, people didn't know how to get there, and I don't exactly remember how I ended up with Riccro Chiaperelli and his brother Louis. I guess Louis just called me and say, hey, because we know from each other, and me and Riccro, we wrestle in the same weight category. We never wrestle each other, but we wrestle same people, so we know. He knew Royce Alger. He wrestled for Iowa, and so I ended up with Riccro and stay with him for quite a time.
No, the early days of the Raw team were stacked. I'm going to kind of from my head list a few. Tom Erickson, Chael Sonnen, yourself. I think Rico Rodriguez may have been kind of dabbled up there. Randy Couture,
Henderson.
Yeah,
Henderson. Don't forget Ben Henderson.
Matt Lindland. Like that room is.
Matt Halls. There was a lot of team.
Who?
Matt Halls was there. I don't know if you remember.
Okay.
In the beginning, we didn't have a place to train, and I used to come to Los Angeles and train with Riccro before fight, or sometimes when I had time and stuff like that. And we trained different places, including Machado Brothers, some kickboxing gyms and stuff like that. And we were kind of dreaming every time I would come, I say, Riccro, one would, get our own place and come and live together, even think like a with dormitory, which is people do now. But then, 22 years later ago, it was pretty awesome idea. And, kind of time came and the dream come true. Here we go. We have nice little gym with a dorm. Actually, I'll start living at the second floor. I have my little room to stay, and that's how it started. And plenty of guys to train with, which is unique.
Okay, so before we get too far, you mentioned Dave Schultz earlier. Mark Schultz has been on our podcast more than one occasion. He's an absolute personal friend of the show. Would you mind describing your relationship with Dave and or Mark and what made them special?
Absolutely. I met Dave, I think in the 80s, middle 80s, when he was still, like I said, training for, I think it was Olympic in Seoul, right? It was 1988.
Okay. He won the gold medal in 84. Okay.
Yes. But then I was still not in school. I was not around. But then I was around in 88 and later on in 91, 92 when Kevin Jackson won gold medal. So from then we were traveling together, and a few times a year we see each other, a few times a year, not just like for a second, like for a few weeks, and we train together and we spar together a few times a day. And so he spoke Russian enough to understand a little bit, and he was translating for everybody, and I was interested with what's going on. Plus he was in my weight category, so we kind of have a group of anywhere from 74 kilos to 100 kilos. We kind of hang out and just pick partners and just kind of hang it. And also, of course, he had unusual technique, unique, I would say, not unusual, but unique, and very, at this time, looking back, it was, to me, was appealing because it was kind of MMA. He didn't have low stance when he was crawling down.
They were mean.
He was wrestled from his feet. So
yeah.
he rarely will go on his knees. He will stand on his feet and feel confident and comfortable. And it was hard to take him down, even if he was standing up. So, I kind of liked it, especially I like it again because my knee was hurting. And I'm like, shit, how can I avoid crawling on my knees? And I'm like looking at Dave, and I'm like, Dave never goes on his knees. And I'm like, okay, I can take it. And yeah, and personality itself, he was very calm, very good sparring partner, very good coach, and it was fun to wrestle against.
Did you wrestle with Mark Schultz as well?
No, never wrestled with Mark.
Okay.
No.
I think at that time he would have been out of it at that point. I think that was kind of when he left. Okay. Did you ever make it? Go ahead, Miguel. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, since we're talking wrestling, and
we love it, dude. We love wrestling, man.
Back to Russia. And did you ever spar with Alexander Karelian?
No, Alexander Karelian was good role model and my, look up to guy, but he was a Greco-Roman. We rarely trained with Greco-Roman guys against each other on that level. We had particular guys I trained with for the throws, kind of something remind me like, okay, if you want to go learn throws here, who are you going to learn from? From Cormier, right? So, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But, can I ask, but you've been in, Karelian, you've been in the same room as him.
Yes, but never training wise. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you compare him physically? Like, is he bigger than Brock Lesnar? Like, I mean, compare them. I'm a real nerd. I need to know.
Well, I met with Brock Lesnar a lot of times, and we trained together. And on the nationals, when I was wrestled, my last and heavyweight, he took 5th. He didn't even place then. I mean, but then he came and lost in college for a while, and to just get his credential up, and we trained all that summer together, and wrestle him in training. So, and compared to Karelian, yes, but Karelian is already older. He's like tall old guy, versus then Brock Lesnar. Now he's old too, but at that time he was young, funny, and
Could Lesnar have competed with Karelian at each other's peaks?
Again, Karelian specialized in Greco-Roman. Brock Lesnar was grabbing the legs. That was his thing. Double leg.
Fair. That's fair. All right. So the Rulon Gardner, obviously he broke the 13-year streak. What was your opinion of the Karelian Gardner match? I've watched it several times.
My opinion, no, to Rulon Gardner. Even like I respect him as a wrestler and everything, but that loss that win was not necessarily win.
Thank you. I agree. Hey, listen.
Hold hands and broke the finger, and you win the gold medal for that.
I agree. I mean, fantastic win for the United States, but I don't think Gardner capitalized on it as much as he could had it been a definitive win. But nonetheless, he got his hand raised. I think it was just.
And maybe to your surprise or not, which is you said you love wrestling.
I do love wrestling.
It was my turn off from wrestling because there was a lot of incidents like that where judges will, pick and choose who you wrestle. There was a lot of politics involved, which is in MMA. And I was wishing in wrestling that at least I could hit the guy, in the face. We used to have a slogan like, you lose in the mat, go win in the locker room, right?
That's fair. Yeah, no, I thought Rulon
dream come true or beware what you wish for, right? But in the beginning of MMA, there was no rules, there was no time limit, there was no judges. My first IFC fights were just fight till you win. Yeah, that's the next question. I know. But,
that's it. You got it, buddy. You know how this
goes.
But
that's why I say attracted me in MMA. Those rules. So that thing happened with Rulon Gardner and Karelian wouldn't happen in MMA, but still does now, but not as much.
It was an exploitation of the rules, and Rulon exploited the rules and got the win.
Yes,
but he was stalling a lot too. There was a lot of stalling on Rulon that probably should have been called. And I'm an American. I love the Olympics, especially wrestling, and I'm telling you. I've watched that thing several times, and every time I couldn't cross the finish line with him. I was always thought Karelian maybe pulled that off. So
absolutely.
September 5th, 1997, International Fighting Championship. Buddy Alban is a promoter, and he's doing big things. He's worked with the UFC in the past. It's the beginning days of mixed martial arts. You enter an 8-man tournament that's actually pretty stacked. How do you get involved?
Again, Rico Chiaperelli offered me fight, or Louis Chiaperelli, his brother. That's how they kind of work out. Rico was coach, Louis was manager. And, they offered me to go, and it was my dream again. I was dreaming to go see those fights and try try what I can do. And since I left Russia and Belarus, I was fighting in the streets, right? But since then, it was a few years past, I didn't hit anybody in the face. I'm like, yeah, dude, actually get to hit somebody for real. And yeah.
So you go up against Vernon White as your first opponent, Ken Shamrock protege. You brought him up several times already. Was there any concerns on your end going into that bout?
Absolutely not. I was ready, able, and just the president of Ken Shamrock was. I know it's not UFC, like everybody's watching UFC, it's IFC, but which is cool because presence of Ken Shamrock already make it real. I'm like, fine. I was feeling like I'm gonna fight this guy first and Ken Shamrock second. I'm taking them both of them.
Okay, cool. So you get through that neck crank. Did that wrestling pedigree help you out in between bouts so you didn't have like adrenaline dumps or anything like that?
Absolutely. Being able to compete, and that experience I brought from wrestling. Absolutely. And I think downfall from, guys who come from jiu-jitsu or just train just in the gym. The nervousness, going to cage, the music, all the stuff, people kind of freaking out a little bit. And for me, it was, I was like fish in the water. That's fine.
Wow. Okay. So your second fight is up against a Canadian national judo, a ranked judo guy, number 3 in the time in that country, Robert Lalond. Any surprises going in? Did you even know who he was?
Didn't know who he was. First of all, I didn't know who I'm going to fight, who's going to fight next one. So again, it was early days when you don't know who you're going to fight next fight. And Robert, yeah, he put up the good fight. He was well standing up guy, but I'm just bullying.
You were very advanced. Like your ability to wrestle and your hands, like you had both of those things. Like I think there were some questions about jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu was very new here in this country, around the world, outside of Brazil at that time. But you appeared to be the whole package, like a Don Fry, an early version of Don Fry.
Oh, thank you.
That is a compliment. That's absolutely a compliment.
Yes, style, and I even train the guys right now. Like it's not what you do. You mentioned jiu-jitsu or wrestling. I think it's how you do it. I think people getting punched and kicked in the face, Ferguson, because they allowed other opponent to do so, not because they're so good. They allowed to. And my early fights, I put everything into with not allowing other person to take even a chance to throw a punch at me. Then I take our ability. Then maybe if I will stay around and wait for a second, Robert, maybe it will be good. Maybe then Vernon White will be better. But I didn't wait. I didn't give him no chance.
That's wild. You go into the finals against Anthony Macias. Anthony Macias at this time is actually managed by Buddy Alban. And you also see him in the finals. Do you want to walk us through that bout?
Same thing in the finals. Already lucky and happy to be there, and I already won in my mind. My experience from first fight was wrap your hands because my hands are already swollen. So maybe Anthony Macias, I couldn't punch so hard. We didn't wrap our hands. We just put those gloves on and I hit hard as I can. And the only thing I can remember, my hands were already swollen and I trying to be a little bit smarter, but same thing. I went through him, didn't give him a chance.
What was the prize money? Go ahead, Miguel.
Vlad, I was just going to ask you, in that tournament, your first tournament, you're young and like you said, you felt that confidence that a lot of wrestlers had. I got this. You were way ahead of everybody. Were you watching the other fights or were you staying in the back?
I was watching other fights and staying in the back. But I trying to learn. That's another thing from wrestling comes when you're watching other opponents and see what they do. especially because I realized early, maybe the difference that, for instance, Kevin Jackson make mistake not to look and not to learn those things, because I was aware that those submissions are dangerous. Those chokes, and leg locks and arm bars are dangerous. And again, thanks to Dave Schultz, he was choking people up left and right in wrestling. And I'm like, yeah, that shit is real. So yeah, I was watching and learning as it goes. And literally Riccro will pull me to the side and say, watch, did you see this? Yes. Did you see this leg lock? Yes. That's what they're trying to do. And we learn as it go. Yeah.
Did you also think that there was a little bit of arrogance with the hardened wrestlers when it came to mixed martial arts?
Enough arrogance, smart arrogance, I think it's okay. But, never I thought, and maybe that's why I lost so long. I know everything, no freaking way. And I was like, and I like to be kind of underdog. I like to, okay, show me. I'll teach me. I'll do it, and I'll beat you next time with your own move.
Right.
So that's my style.
So did you? What was the prize money for this tournament?
I think it was $5,000 cash.
Okay. So with Buddy Alban, what did you know about him as a promoter, and what were your dealings with him like?
Honestly, at that time, I didn't know what was the difference between promoter and, manager and who's doing what. Later on, I start, figuring out, and nobody knew it. Nobody knew it because some of our promoters were fighters, even like Jamie Levine, for instance. How can you be promoter, coaching somebody same time for that show, and to be a fighter yourself? Like, it was Wild West, not just in the cage, but it was Wild West outside the cage with promoters. So no, I didn't know who promoter was. I didn't really care.
So Andy Anderson was the referee. He owned several nude steakhouses as well as nightclubs in Texas. And Andy has told us, we have him lined up for an interview, very short, coming up from jail, I might add. And he, in essence, said that Buddy was just an alcoholic, out of control. And sometimes he would leave and Andy would have to pay some of the fighters. Did that ever happen with you?
It happened to me later when I didn't get exact amount of money. But at that time, Riccro was taking care of that stuff. He will go first, and then later on learn that if you want to learn, if you don't want to fight for your money later, you better come first and get your cash, because promoter maybe run out of the money later on. that was a deal. Not because he's necessarily a bad guy, maybe because he's drunk later on, or he pay one fighter, he pay second fighter. Also, sorry, I don't have it. So that's how it was.
It's so true.
Preferably, if you get paid advance, that was a thing. Like, give me a bag of money, I'll go in the cage.
So you walk out of there, 3 wins, 3 finishes. There's actually 2 knockouts and neck crank. So you really kind of make a name for yourself. And they bring you in May 30th, 1998 in the main event to fight Anthony Macias again. And I kind of chalk this up to Macias begging for a rematch. Buddy Alban, who's the promoter and his manager, lines him up with you. Do you even remember that fight?
Not really. My first fights, I didn't. So I'm trying to mix this slice better. Which one again? You said which one?
You won by a guillotine in 16 seconds.
Which fight was it?
It's your second fight, May 30th, 1998, against Anthony Macias, the rematch.
Rematch with not guillotine. Rematch was with a little split his brow. I remember exactly what happened. I hit him, it was a cut.
Okay.
It was a cut, doctor stoppage.
16 seconds?
Yep, 16 seconds.
That's freaking nuts. Man, that's a hard pill to swallow. You beg your manager for a rematch. They fly you to a different country where nobody is from. you headline, and then you lose in 16 seconds.
And again,
hard.
it's a good example, not necessarily because Anthony didn't know how to defend the punch. And I think it was a jab even, but he allowed me to do so, and it's easy avoidable. And, when you're not in the moment, what to do.
So he and Oleg Taktarov had a fight in the UFC where Oleg wins by guillotine in a few seconds. And the rumor was it was a fake fight. It was a fake fight. We've had Bob Meyerowitz and Joe, and we had Bob Meyerowitz on. He said, absolutely, it was a fake fight. We had Oleg on. For sure, it was not a fake fight. What was your opinion of that?
Well, my fighter etiquette, I will say, I don't want to judge people and, say who was fake or not. But, with Oleg, again, it's not the first time I said not first fight I heard of that it was fake.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's
if
it's not just one fight, few fights and people saying it, maybe some truth into it.
I agree. Yeah. And it got him a bye into the finals against Tank Abbott, where he's fresh. Obviously, he's the better person rather than Anthony Macias. But it rolls us into your third event, and it's your fifth fight, Rumble in Reno. So you're back to where you started, September 4th, 1998, against a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu student in Joe Pardo.
About that fight, again, Joe Pardo, so far at that time in my career, I didn't feel threatened by jiu-jitsu. For some reason, I don't know. Maybe I didn't come up with somebody but so far,
you didn't give him a chance.
Exactly. Don't give him a chance. And jiu-jitsu is very, you have to be provoked. You have to give them some kind of energy or willing to take something from them to be able to submit it. If you learn how to not give him that ability, then it's very impossible to use it. I have to be a little bit too aggressive to get cut. And, and I didn't give him that ability. I was preparing for the fight, run around, in Reno. I'm going to school that time in the University of Nevada, Reno. And we just literally run around around this casino where we fought in high altitude. I was in good shape, doing push-ups, doing this. I'm full of energy, and I'm just bullying the guy.
So Joe Pardo, for those of you at home, let me just background this, Miguel. He's 3-2, but he's got wins over John Lober and Brad Kohler, and he's fought only high-end people. Like Joe Pardo was absolutely the real deal. Go ahead, Miguel.
I was just going to say something very similar as give Joe some props. Did you hear his reputation? Because he was known as the doorman at the Gracie Academy, that he was the guy that did the challenge matches. You can come in and challenge them. You don't get the Gracie right away, but Joe, that first guy, Joe was tough. At least that was his reputation. That didn't worry you.
Absolutely not. My head was in UFC fighting the championship. I think even at that time, I don't know who was champion. I was, there was warm up for me to be in the big league. Maybe I was over my head, but I don't really care.
It doesn't matter. It's the championship mindset. You got through it. Yeah.
Well, every guy, you are very humble, because every guy you fought, from Vernon White to Joe Pardo, Lalond, they all have real legitimate resumes.
Yeah.
You are at least a couple of classes above, it seems. So don't be so humble.
I think, Vlad, when you came in to the UFC, you were like this hot prospect, and the internet really wasn't what it was. But us fight heads, like Miguel and I, when you came, it was that's what we noticed. We're wait a minute, look at so-and-so's record who got to the UFC, who's a decent fighter. But then you looked at your resume, and it was holy shit. You were a legitimate, just tough guy. In a list of tough guys, you were the toughest. It was, we're getting through it. October 25th, 1998. So we're talking about a month And a few weeks after, Vale Tudo, Japan, Kawaguchi, Kenji Kawaguchi, another standout fighter from, was it Yokohama Gym, I want to say? Yokohama Gym shooting.
I think so.
Yeah.
Awesome fight. Good experience. I took a risk going to Japan in the first place because my visa was still, I had a student visa, but I have to rearrange. So till the last day, I didn't know I'm going to go or not. And I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go. And I have to lose weight all the way to 185, sucking a cube of ice on airplane for 14 hours flying down there and getting in a taxi cab and asking taxi driver to put a heater on, put my hoodie and just jumping around the cab. That was my experience. I think weight loss, just get all my nervousness out. I didn't know, I just want to make weight, and I ran around the stairs and the bleachers until I made it. Went to fight, jet lag, all this stuff. I don't really care. I just, again, same thing. I went there. I didn't know who he was. I saw a few fights. There was some interesting fights, at that time. Was Trick was fighting in the, no, he wasn't fighting that time. Yeah.
I think Frank Trigg was also part of Raw team as well.
Yeah.
Ivan Salaverry.
Frank was fighting with Jean-Jacques Machado. Yes. Yeah. And Randy Cultura, he lost to Insano at that time. So it was good card. And I was watching and learning. That was good way to learn how to not get caught in armbar, with Randy. And but 185, I think I was feel super strong. And a few punches, guy was out, or he quit. And
it's interesting, Mike. I'll point this out to you. What the Japanese do, they make this guy cut to 185. This is the same show they made Brandon Lee Hinkle cut to 185 to fight Masanori Suda. So they were stacking the card against you, but both guys lost anyway. But you met the Hammer House on that show too.
Yeah, that was a good fight. Yeah, Brandon Hinkle was there, and that was a good fight. Yeah, it was a good experience. Good fights and good. Yeah.
Did you go out to Roppongi afterward with Mark Coleman?
Not with Mark Coleman at the time. We had our dates with Mark, but I stayed there for 2 weeks in Japan because my visa again. Unfortunately become fortunate because I have to wait for approval to go back to the United States, and I was scared. I don't want to go back to Belarus. I'm like, sure.
Yeah, but I don't think they could send you back to Belarus. So you played a smart game there.
You always, I didn't have my. I was not citizen like right now. If you don't have citizenship, you're in the like they can just like ask you to politely to leave or not to come back.
Oh, wow.
And let me lay this out correctly. So you're in the United States on a student visa. You leave to Japan. You're not sure if you're going to get back in clean.
Yes,
and Japan,
exactly.
And Japan has no obligation to keep you. So you do run the risk of, why would they say, yeah, stay? So you do run the risk of winding up back in Belarus. That's quite scary. Wow.
That was I was more worried about than anything. But that time I spent good 2 weeks in Japan, go to different gyms, go to sauna, get the culture. I fell in love with Japan and culture and MMA culture. And yeah, good experience.
That's cool. Yeah, shooting gym Yokohama, which is where your opponent was from, is pretty famous gym. I think you had Rico Chiaperelli in your corner. Oh, no, you had Rico Chiaperelli in your corner for your next fight. Jeremy Horn was in the other corner, April 2nd, 1999. You go back up to Canada, Quebec, and you fight Travis Fulton, who at the time was 56-13-5.
Yeah, that was a tough fight.
That's when Travis was legitimately fighting. He was at one point before he kind of, gave up on actual legitimate fights. He was a top tier fighter.
Yes, and the Canada, Quebec particularly, loved the food. It's after Japan, but probably my first place to be.
Really?
Fans, Canadian fans, I kind of know what they do, and I think it's mixed between MMA and hockey, ice hockey, and but Travis Fulton was tough fight. He the one who actually hit me. I allowed him to hit me or whatever happened, and I felt that, and be able to operate while you under those little bumps of his. It was okay. Takedowns were easy, chokes or whatever. But yeah, he was a tough fighter. I think it was my first fight where actually I felt resistance.
Wow. Did it surprise you?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you always talk about your cardio, and obviously, we know your cardio is excellent, but that was 1 round, 15 minutes. Did you feel that? Did that affect you a little bit?
20-minute round. It ended at 15:33. Go ahead.
Still 15 minutes. It's a long, yes. And I was prepared for it, but I felt it. Anytime you fight over 15 minutes, you'll feel it. And especially if the person doesn't give up and he's good enough. And surprisingly, maybe I'm underestimating Travis because he was kind of chubby. And I'm like, this guy's not going to last even 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, like 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, he's still there. I'm like, I put in some damage on, but yeah. And I that's what I'm trying to finish him, like, because of that. I'm like, I'm start getting tired. I better finish her. I better start finishing him up.
Yeah, it's truly a tragic life Travis led. I mean, his beginning, middle, and end. And we have it documented in one of our previous little interviews. October 9th, 1999, Vernon White rematch. Ken Shamrock, from what I understand, demanded this fight with Buddy Alban and got it. What was your feelings of the second Vernon White fight? Because I know it's kind of controversial.
It was controversial. It started with promoters asked me to go to Canada like week advance or 2 weeks advance, promising me money, going around the clubs, promote the fight. And at the end, they won the last second. They're trying to change something. They didn't try to pay in full. And I think Riccro was asking him advance because he felt something was wrong. And he's like, okay, guys, whatever we agree on, why don't you just pay it now? If you have what cold feet, is that what they called? Yeah. And refused to do so. And they say, no, we already spent so much money. You pay for your hotel, pay for this. And now it's all come from your purse. And Riccro said, nope. And pretty much what I said to Vernon at the time, it's my guess. Don't get knocked out or don't get choked out. Go to distance and you win the fight. And some people tell me that it's hard to see those fights, but I saw it.
It's not on there anymore.
Many other people saw it.
Yeah.
You'll see big surprise in Vernon's face when his hands get raised. He was so surprised that he didn't believe himself. So I didn't believe either, but I was upset. But again, I learned from that. Don't give it to judges.
Was he gracious in victory then? Because in his book, he describes the fight very differently than everybody else that has seen it.
Well, what happened, or what they say about those people who describe things in different ways that everybody else sees, it's called delusion.
Okay. But that's fair.
Maybe it makes him feel better. That's fine. Like reality, because I like to learn from reality. If I'm in delusion and what happened, then I will learn bad things. It means if I continue to go to fight, I'm gonna repeat this shit again. And obviously Vernon, career, I don't know what happened after he kind of like died out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, very controversial split decision loss on your end. I couldn't find the video, but I was able to find messages from years ago, and people were all complaining about it. Like, it was wrong. So there's multiple people, not just yourself. That's where I come from. I read some.
Now you give me motivation. Now you gave me motivation to find a fight, and I'm pretty sure I can fight. I'm pretty sure somebody have VHS somewhere, and that VHS can be put on YouTube. And
you put that on YouTube. Get that bad boy up there. So you're having trouble with Buddy Alban. There's some money issues. it started kind of coming into play. I know at this point he was kind of losing reality with alcohol. It's actually another tragic story that we're going to get into in a future interview. And you actually do one more fight with the IFC, which kind of surprised me. March 25th, 2000, IFC Warriors Challenge 6. I know shortly after this, Howard Petchler and Paul Smith kind of step in and take over the organization. But you fought John Marsh, who's 6-2 on a neutral grounds.
John Marsh was a tough fight.
Yeah.
And we become good friends afterwards. With training partners, he helped me a lot to get for my fights and his fights. And as a matter of fact, he was in my teammate for IFL later on. He was in heavyweight. And we trained almost same people in Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, my boxing coach went and trained me instead of, he was friend with John, and he went and trained me. Rika asked him, so John was upset. But anyways, tough guy, and I've been worrying about him. Good submissions, quick submissions. So if I pass that, I guess at that time I was already good enough to defend myself from submissions. But striking wise, yeah, I feel a few punches. I got him, and that's a long fight. The fight when you feel like we're looking at each other like, are we done yet? And we were not scheduled for overtime. Surprisingly, after 2 rounds, people start booing and screaming. They were excited because fight was excited, but they were demanding one more round. They were demanding one more round. They were looking at each other. Are we getting paid extra for that? Or shit? No. But we did it, and I won by decision.
So there was 2 promoters that were famous for that, Buddy Alban and Jamie Levine, where they would just come in a room and just go, all right, I know I signed you guys for a 3-round fight, and 7-round fights don't exist, but you're going to go 7 rounds this time. Okay, lock the gate. Let's go. See you later. Like, they were doing those type of things, and both of you 2 agreed to fight a 3rd round. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it gives, again, like camaraderie. We understand each other, and we didn't want to let fans down and you don't want to be called chicken, and yeah, it's a weird feeling, but fight is fight. It's like, you just go there and fight. Right. It's not necessarily at that time after like I said, 20, 25-minute fight. It's not for money anymore. It's like,
Yeah, no, for sure. So you go from there. We mentioned Jamie Levine a couple times. WEF, August 26, 2000. Tommy Sauer. He's 11-3, and he's somebody that is absolutely on the UFC radar at this time. It's a fantastic fight for that of yourself.
Good fight too. Tough guy. Really nice guy too. Don't know what to say. Get hit a few times, but I was ready. At that time, I was training in Los Angeles already with Rica full time almost. And I spent 2-3 weeks camp. That was like, it was not UFC yet, but I was already training for UFC. You mentioned it. I was in the big league already. So I don't think anybody could stand in front of me.
So you stopped that fight round 2 by a cut. You get the call. I mean, about 10 months later, June 29, 2001, UFC 32. So you take a 10-month break. Were you injured?
No injury. It was transition. I didn't want to take any more fights but UFC. That was my goal. That was my dream. And I think at that time, UFC was in the process of Zuffa buying it. So there was no other fights available for second, except if you go to Japan and stuff. So I didn't want to travel anymore because, again, my visa, I finished my schools, my student visa was out, and I was in process getting my working visa. So traveling was not advised. So, yeah, the only chance for me was UFC, and I was waiting for them until they settled down, signed all the deals, and I'm in.
How were you making ends meet at this point?
How make what?
Were you working? How were you paying your bills?
Yes, same time I was actually fighting with the Tom Sauer. And after finish your college, you have 1 year to working experience, they called. I was coaching, and I was still working at Lassen College, and I was coaching at the private school. And then when we opened the gym, Raw Gym, or Real American Wrestling, I was hired, as one of the instructors officially. So that was my job.
That's good. Did Chael Sonnen ever stand out at Raw Gym, or was he just still too new?
I think at the time was still new, and no, I didn't have a chance to train with Chael. No, not really.
Did Mark Schultz, because I know he's not too far from that area. He's also a Pedro Sauer guy. Did Mark ever go and work out with you guys over at Raw Team?
No, never Mark.
That's wild.
That's wild.
Josh Barnett was there. Lyoto Machida was there. John Marsh for a fight was always there.
How was Barnett to work out with? How was he in the room?
It was awesome. It was, again, different experience, different style, which is I could have adjust to people like him. His coach at that time, Eric Paulson, he was big, I will say, influence on me. I catch a few things from him, and I like the style with being very innovative, I would say.
Yeah, we're huge fans of Paulson, him and Matt Hume. Did you ever get a chance to work out with Matt Hume at all?
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was like we were learning from each other. They were asking me how to do takedowns. I was asking them how to do leg locks and passing the guard and all that stuff. So we were like kids in the sandbox. Show me your toy, I'll show you mine.
Yeah, Eric Paulson, Matt Hume, like those are kind of like the heroes of Miguel and I. We really like them as coaches. You finally get to call to the UFC 32, Yuki Condo. At the time, Yuki Condo was, Miguel, would you say he's top 5 in the world at this point?
I mean, clearly the Pancrase poster boy. He was
Yes.
their poster guy. And when the UFC brings him in, this would be a tough match, for on both ends. Both guys are being put through a test for this fight, in my opinion, but looking back at it.
What was your thoughts on the fight?
Well, first of all, my thoughts of the Yuki Kondo, because he knee in the face Tito Ortiz, and at the time he was my goal when he was walking around with his blonde dyed hair with an American flag, and I was like, I want to fight that guy. And when I saw Yuki Kondo actually, beating him like that, I'm like, he's beatable, and which is make him dangerous. He's very explosive, very unpredictable. He's, therefore, I choose, maybe at the time people were complaining, including Dana White, conservative technique, just take him down, hold him, ground and pound him. Don't give him opportunity to do this flying knees. And I did it. I won. Yeah.
Was Dana already in charge at UFC 32?
Yes, that's the first time we met, and I have that first poster when he still have a hair and stuff, and I was looking young.
He had like bad teeth. Yeah, he had bad teeth and he had hair.
Yeah, and the skinny and stuff. But yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So your next fight, you're training for Kevin Randleman, and they switched about because we got it right here. I think they switched about because the opponent, Vitor Belfort, fell off against Tito Ortiz.
Yes, absolutely right.
Right, I had to remember that. I apologize. So Tito Ortiz, UFC 33 title fight. When does the switch happen?
Switch happened literally 2 weeks before, I believe. Maybe two. And UFC was just in the beginning what they were doing and under stress of making it, I guess. The card was good. Tito Ortiz and Victor Belfort, awesome fight. Belfort getting hurt, cutting his hand or something like that on the glass window, whatever happened.
He's a shower or something like that, I believe.
Yes. And
dude,
they're
20-year-old
looking
memory.
for replacement. I'm under contract. I'm in the card. They put into sacrifice. I'm pretty sure they asked a few other people at the time didn't have in a light heavyweight, they not necessarily maybe want to put me in yet. And I wish now looking back, maybe I shouldn't take that fight because, mentally, maybe I was not ready. Physically, I was there. But I did. They offered me more money. That's what my impatience, and Rico's complaining about me, my impatience. And I think he was right, absolutely. But as a coach now, I know. But I want to take the fight. I want to fight Tito freaking when you want to fight Tito. Say, I want to fight him yesterday. Give him now. And of course, they were not offering. We were asking for more money. Of course, they refused, which is Dana does pretty good job doing it now with the fighters. Still same.
Still says no. Yeah, it's weird how that.
Yeah, it's a no, but we're in a position where actually we can negotiate. And he said, well, you under contract and you're supposed to fight whatever fight we give it to you. And me and Rico would say, well, I could have easily get my ankle twist and I don't fight at all. What to do? Have to pay a little more. And but he was pissed. Dana was pissed. But I didn't know at the time. I was just getting ready for a fight. And switching from regular fight, being kind of underdog to straight to championship was maybe too early for me, too big. Part of it, I think that's why I lost psychologically. The fight was long. Yeah.
And they never gave Kevin Randleman another fight. They pretty much just scratched him from the card.
Yes, I don't know what happened in his maybe personal life or something. I don't know.
It had to have been because Mark Coleman, like we did one of these interviews with Mark Coleman, and like the UFC ran Mark out of the organization. And that's, you can't argue it. I even wrote an article for Full Contact Fighter in regards to it. And Kevin Randleman left the UFC on a win. Like there was something with Hammerhouse and Bob Myrowitz and Big John McCarthy that they just didn't jive, and they wanted Hammerhouse out.
Yes. And, in my experience again with Dana and UFC, it was, they're very personal. Like in The Godfather, it's only business, but any business is personal, or personal is a business.
It's not personal when it affects you, but when it affects them, it's very personal.
I learned that, and I didn't fight for UFC after that for a while, and I have to literally go to Dana, apologize. Well, not even necessarily apologize, but just to say, yeah, I'm able to. If you need my services, I'm still there, and we were cool since then till now. So I don't know what Randleman deal was.
Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions. Was Tito greased on that event because you couldn't get a takedown?
Possibly.
Did it cross your mind? Did it cross your mind that
it crossed my mind? But again, in my mind at that time, I was so eager to just take him out, and I should have calmed down more in the middle of the fight and just stop chasing the rabbit and attempt those takedowns. And my striking game was awesome. I was ready. And as a matter of fact, Tito was even complimenting me after, even a few years after. He said, you're the one who hit me the most or hardest, whatever. And I was training with Nigel Hudson. He was assistant coach for Freddie Roach in the wild card. And I was sparring guys with boxers. And so I felt pretty good with my striking. Maybe I put my takedowns on the side and kind of like forgot about it for a second. And Tito did, he's a wrestler. He knows what's up. He did his ground pound, and my sweeping game was not there yet. I was able to, at the time, my grappling was in a level where I can avoid submissions, but I couldn't sweep or armbar myself from the top. And,
did the weight cut bother you?
Did what?
Weight cut bother you?
No, weight cut didn't bother me. No, even if I did come on time, what they were saying, but I was thinking it's more like a wrestling kind of weight cut when you stay in your underwear and just last second, boom, on the scales, you're done. They were more like, because it's a championship fight, it was like, yeah, it's more like a show. And they thought I have a hard time to make weight. No, weight cut didn't bother me.
Okay.
Psychologically, before all the interviews, all the limos and stuff like that, a little bit bothered me. In the fight itself, it was more my head. I was chasing to win, which is I should have stayed more in the moment, I'll say. And that fight would, completely.
Vlad, you couldn't even get your hands on them and have them stick. Like, I'm watching this fight, and I'm just, Tito's a smart guy too, and Dana at this time, just separated himself from managing him, which I think was probably the foundation of their issues. Because Tito actually said, "Yeah, no, you really don't manage me now," and Dana's thinking, "Well, I kind of still do," and it was kind of you got caught right in the middle. But
yeah,
Tito was greased for sure, 100%. Tito was greased.
Okay, Tito was greased.
Thank you.
Tito will be, if Tito will be greased, and again, I'm not trying to be hard on myself. If Tito will be greased on a parking lot and we'll fight there, what would I say? Oh, Tito, take your grease off. No, dude. There's no such a thing.
Well, Vlad, you're also very hard on yourself anyway. You said you didn't accomplish much in wrestling, and you beat 2 American gold medalists at the age of 18. So I think your perception of yourself and what you're supposed to do is a lot different than, I don't know, say myself.
Okay. I had a time to analyze myself, especially after I retired, right? That's all I've been doing. Okay. And I realized that I was absolutely running my life on the first gear. If you're driving a stick shift, all those fights I did maybe 15 to 20% ability. That's why I could accomplish. That's why I hardened myself. A learning technique now and see how things can be done. I'm like, wow, I'm amazed now. That's why I'm still like to go roll. I train 3 times today. And just because I have having fun doing it, just because, I more fully understand mixed martial arts now. And it's the coolest thing.
That's amazing. Let me ask you about the thing about Tito, and I like Tito, and he was a star, one of the first stars. But wrestling is a game of levels. And at the end of the day, he's a junior college wrestler, and you were a Russian Olympic, candidate, So don't you think
Olympic coach, multiple country Olympic coach?
There was a difference there. You had to recognize that.
People evolved, and wrestling for freestyle, for college, even different. Wrestling for MMA is different. And I'm coaching every day. I was actually teaching class today and said, yes, in wrestling, you score points, even if it's ugly or whatever, doesn't matter what position you're in, you get points. You can just hold on to those points. Referee will blow the whistle. You guys back up. You're ahead of the game. Same thing I'll say about football, the tackles, because sometimes I train football players and some of them pretty good. They don't care how they fall. In the MMA, takedown is just the beginning. You have to place yourself in a position where you're able to control and finish the fight. Nobody going to give you points. And sometimes they do, sometimes not. I understand, 10 seconds left. If I take somebody down and just hold them down, maybe in eyes of judges, I'll score some points. But on the long run, particularly with fight like with Tito, 5-minute rounds, takedowns mean shit. So if I can't do takedown right when I can advance myself to able to finish the fight or put some damage to it, means nothing.
Okay, so you had talked about training, coaching. You have got, there's certain relationships in mixed martial arts that it like transcends family. They transcend family. And you look at like Kid Yamamoto, Ensign Inoue, you brought up Ensign Inoue earlier, Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman. There's just like almost a bond or a brotherhood there that is indescribable. And Anthony Hardonk and yourself obviously own a gym, Dynamics. And you guys have been like partners, gym partners for like 20 years.
Yes, Anthony Hardon and me were still together. We just had a how describe relationship again. In the beginning, we were met in 2006, 2007, when he was traveling to US. And
famous Dutch kickboxer. I mean, just a hard, high-end kickboxer out of Holland that transitioned to MMA, Anthony Hardon.
And I would say not necessarily that's what attracted me to him at the time too. There's a difference between something I can get from person and something there's good fighter and good coach fighter. You know, for instance, like Rampage, love Rampage, good athlete. I don't think he's a good coach, you know?
No.
So Anthony Hardon, I could have get something from him. He was teaching me correct way to kick, correct way to stay, conserve energy, see the distance, angles, and all the stuff like that. So it was my, I'll say, first coach where you actually can just start making sense to me in striking.
Okay.
And that kind of same time in exchange, I was teaching how to wrestle, and Hickson Gracie and some of his students was teaching Anthony how to jiu-jitsu. So, and we kind of interact and create that team, like you said, bond, and it lasts till this day. And we still we having fun. We meet at the gym. Sometimes we say hi, bye, because we crisscross our training. I teach my classes, he teach his classes. But on the places like we travel for UFC, for the fights, we spend whole week in a room and we talk about stuff. We train after training our fighter, and we try things and innovate, and our styles merge in striking and in wrestling, and that's what make it so fun, because you don't have to separate them. Instead of separating them, we merge them together. And I think a lot of strikers can learn from or a lot of wrestlers can learn from strikers. Pretty much, if you stand in front of somebody in wrestling and you don't touch them, you just kind of doing moves, that's pretty much striking. You work on a distance. As soon as you grab somebody, including striking, that's what boxers do. That's what Lomachenko does. His boxing is mixed with wrestling, and those things are awesome. But anyways, I'm off the topic. Anthony Hardon, yes, love the guy. See him often. As far as gym, I'm actually not partnered officially. I'm just a coach. I like to help him out, and I'm there every day. I teach my classes, do my part, working with anywhere from little kids to pro fighters.
Now, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. Tito Ortiz fight. If I had to say a monkey, if I were to lift a monkey off of your back, I would tell you that I know you were very upset with the way you performed. You lost the decision. But years later, I'm talking 14, 15 years later, Dana White still uses UFC 33 as the worst UFC ever because of how boring it was, because there was no finishes and it was all decisions. He even did this. He even mentioned it a few years ago. And with Rose Namajunas clearly having the worst fight in UFC history, that fight and that entire event will never get brought up again.
I don't see fights, and thanks God, I don't see it as boring or not boring. I see beyond that. I see preparation for athlete for a fight. I think mixed martial arts, you can divide that pie into three categories or three pieces. There's a sport of it, which is who wins, who loses, and there's knockouts and stuff like that. That's cool. There's a show of it, and show is excitement, blah blah blah, cool fights, and also the art of it. You can see art of people competing. That's what you see. I see personally, but you have to know enough about boring jiu-jitsu matches or boring wrestling matches where Rulon Gardner wrestle with the Karelian, with that kind of stuff. But there's an art into it. There's a lot of things going on. It's not necessarily good show, but it's still good art, and you can appreciate it.
I agree. So
like
you
there's
had
an old saying. I'm sorry, but there's an old saying like the better jazz gets, the harder it is to understand. And I think that's what you're talking about. That you're looking at the sophistication of it.
Yeah, and right now personally, I'm looking for things I can learn from, and things that I can. To me, it doesn't matter who wins, who loses. Sometimes I have my preferences, but after all, I just want to see who put it down at that level. People know how to do it. It's just like how they do it and when they do it. Are they on time? Or they, that matters to me.
So Vlad, I think you're covering your microphone. So you have a missing fight that's not on your record. And I saw a couple rumblings about it. It was against Eugene Jackson, Rumble in Roseville, and Submission Productions. It was Kevin Wu and Ron Emerson. What happened in that fight? A fellow UFC veteran, Eugene Jackson.
I understand. That's a good question. You brought up a few good questions in this. I have to look it up because it had never been put on my record. But I did that fight and I won that fight. I have a belt for that fight. They actually give me a belt for that, and it hangs over there. So it was real. I get paid for that. Maybe not much. And I fought that fight right after I beat Anthony Macias. And I flew back to Reno, and somebody offered me like, hey, you want to fight? I'm like, I still have no scratch on me and I'm ready to go. I didn't have a corner then. I just jumped in my car. Okay, I'll take it. And just went there and fought.
So
and
that
the fair square beat him. Yeah.
1998, June, July, or August, because Joe Pardo's in September. That would kind of fill that in. Okay, so you beat him fair and square. Your original opponent was supposed to be Paul Varlitz.
Yes.
When did it switch?
I was not even aware. Whoever was in the front of me, I drove there literally in my car. It was no weight, so it was like, I guess it was heavyweight or whatever.
Yeah.
I jump in, and yeah.
Okay, so it was supposed to be Paul Varlitz. Do you remember who the referee was?
No recall, but I can find out about the fight more. Like you mentioned, Paul Smith. He's from that area, and he will know, and he will witness this, and maybe I'll put that fight in my record.
There was a future UFC champion, Pete Williams, from the Lions Den.
Pete Williams, yes.
He was the referee. So you had a guy from Lions Den. You've obviously had, a couple run-ins with Vernon White as the referee. Huh. That's interesting.
It's interesting, but again, like at that time, I didn't care about politics, and good thing I didn't take 2 judges. It was a legit win, and it was over.
July 13, 2002, you had a canceled fight at UFC 38 against Evan Tanner.
Cut the bro. Silly thing. I was training, really ready for the fight. I was excited to go to England, and just fooling around after training. And I'm like,
who was it with?
I don't remember at the time. It was one of the guys. We just fooling around and knee in the bro and the eyebrow. Boom. I still have a scar, right? Was way, open, like legit open, but stupid mistake.
So you lose to Tito Ortiz. Obviously, we addressed that. Evan Tanner's fight gets canceled, and you fly back out to Japan after that. I'm assuming your visa got straightened, and you fight for Universal Fighting Arts Organization, Antonio Nogueira.
That was an interesting fight.
Yeah, one of the top 5 in the world.
After my UFC loss, I felt like I need to redeem myself and make some money. At the time, I'm like, shit, okay. After a while, like, yeah, give my money. And going back to Japan, I was very excited. Tough fighter. I already knew from beginning. His brother, him, left-handed. That's why I started really training with the left-handed guys. French Rick, thanks to him, he was lefty. I beat him up for a few times because of that. Lyoto Machida was left-handed. He was helping him out too at the time. And The guys like Eric Paulson and those guys were helping me to not to get submitted, and which is he tried. Nogueira tried to do my armbar, and you see in the fight he almost caught me, kind of like Randy Couture style, and I was, yeah.
Your movement in the match seems a little like your gait on your feet. It seems like it's a little shortened, like almost like a limp. Were you injured in that fight?
The second fight I was injured, the one I lost. The one in Japan, I beat him fair and square. It was a long fight.
Okay.
The one in Japan, I won. I have a trophy too.
What happened? Do what I think happens sometimes, like on YouTube, fights will come up and I watch them, and sometimes even if it's a rematch,
a second fight. It was a second fight with him. Definitely,
the dates will be switched. Okay.
Yes.
So what happened in that second fight? Was you looked injured?
Yes, I was injured. I tore my groin muscles. Literally couldn't walk for a while. Then I started walking a little bit because, again, at that time, IFL fell apart, and that was my fight with Affliction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, over a year, and I'm like, you know what? I need some money, and I put everything into it, and my groin thing didn't. And I fake it because I would have to go see a doctor before a fight. I was procrastinated to go to the doctor till last second until they told me, like, dude, you have to go to the doctor. I'm like, okay. I just was waiting till my bruise was go away from my groin. And then even then I spray 10 spray, you know, like my wife uses sometimes, make her look like she's 10. So doctors don't see it. And literally to me I know it was cheating. And I apologized to Thomas Sensio and Affliction later on, but I was able to walk in, but I wasn't able to move at all. And I hit him still with good hook. I was surprised. I should have freaking taken down and, you know, I still have a chance to win, but, you know, it is what it is. Yes.
It is what it is. Right, for sure.
Since we went to Affliction, I gotta ask you though, because obviously you're Belarusian, and that main event was Arlovsky and Fedor. They're both from back there. Like, what did you feel? Like, what are your thoughts on those two guys?
At that time, I was a big fan of Fedor. Even now, always.
Of course.
Is Arlovsky. We trained together. After a few times, we went to Wild Card together, and we had same manager at the time. His manager was managing me.
Who was the manager? What was the name?
Leo Hartinsky.
Okay.
And he was a Ukrainian, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, I remember him.
And Hadorovsky, yes. And that fight again, Andre shows even good skills right now later on in his career, and he could have done that. He went a little bit impatient again. He will stay in the moment. He may have a good chance to beat that fight. And he went a little bit too greedy, a little bit too fast. And Ferrer was there. His fist was there, or his knee, or whatever. Arlovsky tried a flying knee, and he just cut his fist. That's what happened.
Arlovsky had him. So I'm a Chicago guy, and like I've been involved with mixed martial arts for 2 decades on a regional level. And Arlovsky, what really helped him the most was USADA. When USADA came into play, like Arlovsky's career lengthened. And like when he was here locally in Chicago, people would I would say, oh, he's a police officer from Belarus. And the Eastern Europeans would say, no, he collect money. He money collected. Like they would say that. Was there any truth to that rumor about his ties in Belarus?
No, I don't think so. And I know Andre pretty good. And I'm a Chicago guy too. If I won't be LA, my best friend lives in Chicago. My first driver license was from Illinois. in the United States, and I went to train with her. That's why I, with his manager, and I trained there with Mike Garcia, with his boxing coach in Chicago.
Like Fly Garcia, yeah. So you mentioned Shenko. He's obviously from here. Where is he coaching at now?
Well, he worked for City of Chicago now. He's done coaching. He used to have his own club, coaching club, whatever it was called. Now he's just a city guy.
Is he a wrestling coach? Does he work for the Park District?
Yes, but not in wrestling. He's just like engineer, does stuff for.
That's so nuts. Like it's. How is he not a wrestling coach somewhere?
I don't know. I guess union. He married the Irish girl with a.
He lives in the South Side. He's in Mount Greenwood.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Okay.
He's with the cops and firemen.
So I'm going to tell you something. I am from the South Side. So when people say, "Well, I'm from Chicago," most of the time they're lying. The guy's from like Mount Greenwood, which is. I do MMA events on a Wednesday night, and we sell out because the Southsiders like to fight. It's a phenomenal place to grow up, and it's an absolute fighting part of the city. He and I have got a couple of mutual friends, and I wasn't sure if he was still coaching. It's shocking to me that he's not.
Yeah, he was coaching Matt Hughes originally too, in the college when he was there, and other couple of guys. But life is there. And speaking of Andre, said I don't think so. He was in the police academy, but he was not connected because I'll say I was connected, and I asked about them. Nobody knows, and yeah.
Okay. So just a quick story about your friend Shenko. There's a local guy here, Jason Beaver is his name. He calls me up. Holy shit. He's coaching grammar school wrestling. Like he's coaching children. He goes, Shenko showed up asking for permission to help coach grammar school. It was like
Anashenko, his name.
Anashenko. All right. I'm never going to get it right.
Yeah, no.
So, it's like, he's like, this guy's on a Russian national team, legend in the sport, asking to help coach children. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's fine. And he actually, as a matter of fact, he used to work in the school district there in Chicago for a few, I'll say months. And then he quit. He just he went there, especially on the South Side, like there's kind of crazy there. And he's like, no freaking way I'm gonna do that. So yeah.
No, he's big part of our community. Let's move on. Antonio Inoki, how is he as a promoter?
Antonio Inoki, that's why I get my chance to fight Nogueira. And I was
did you like working with him?
I don't know. It was kind of hard. I don't know. It's hard to say. He was a big shot. He was famous, and people treat him like that. I don't like when people have a big shots. Kind of like I like more. But everything's fine. Organization was fine. I didn't put it that way. I didn't get too close to him. We didn't crack the jokes together and stuff like that. So
at the time, obviously MMA is about the fighters, but Inoki wanted it also to be about himself. So. Exactly. In the beginning of shows like this, he would jump out of airplanes, or if they did a show in Brazil, he would jump into, the Amazon River. He always had to do something, I don't know, to kind of prove to the crowd that, although not a fighter, that they should pay attention to him. Yeah, pretty big ego.
Yeah, an ego, but again, maybe those guys, they bring something into MMA and make it more as a show, which is, after all, that's how they make money. That's how people wants to see on TV and internet. And me personally, I'm better at it. So I won't do it, but I admire people complaining even right now about UFC that it's become more like WWF and stuff like that. And I agree with that, but maybe if will be too much sport into it, it's too much honesty, people will be not watching it. People not watching it, then promoters don't have money to pay people. So you have to be kind of balanced between it. So yeah, Inoki, he did what he did. Not, I'm a fan, but not that big of a fan. I'm a fan of fighters.
I gotcha. Your grappling competitions. Let's talk about a little bit of your grappling background. You've gone up against Zande Ribeiro and Vinny Malinese. Neither of them could submit you.
Neither one could submit me, and I beat Vili and I beat Zandi, but they stole him. His student was coach. He was refereeing. Come on, you can see that fight too. I took his back, but again, nothing bad to say. They scored draw, whatever. But nice guy. And again, we're friends on Facebook, and we trained for about a week after that. He came in the raw gym, and we trained and learned a lot. And he was a good, definitely good coach. Like I mentioned earlier, not every fighter good coach, but Zandi, he's one of them. I learned the most side control, do other cool stuff, which is in my further fights. My second round in UFC, I used it, and it was cool. Another guy I want to mention like that, like again, Brazilian, good coach, good friend is come on, who beat Fedor Emelianenko?
Oh, Werdum.
Fabrecio Werdum. And I was
lined up
training for
too.
that fight before. I was training with him all summer for that, and and he did good. And I'm like, yeah, dude. But he teach, he taught me a lot of things too about the jiu-jitsu for MMA.
So obviously Russia, Ukraine, there's a lot of political stuff happening. There's a lot going on. It's almost overwhelming at times. You just mentioned Werdum and Brazil. You're from that part of the country. Your parents, I'm sure, taught to you about World War II. It's brought up in school. What is your opinion with some of the Brazilian competitors with German last names?
With German last names?
You just mentioned one.
Well, back in the days, probably some Germans immigrated to Brazil and Argentina, which is nothing bad to it. We all melt in part. Even Russians in Belarus, they tell me, oh, America this, America that, they did this, you guys did that. And I tell them, you know what Americans are? They are Ukrainians. In Chicago, a lot of them. They are Irish, Italian, Brazilians. We all mix. We all come from somewhere. Some people came earlier, some later, but we're all mixed. We're free spirit. You know what I mean? That's what Americans are. The same with Brazilians.
Okay. That was a very good answer. Very politically correct answer, I might add. I was hoping to kind of catch you. Miguel, I will further prove that Vlad will never badmouth anybody with this next question. You mentioned the IFL. The Tokyo Sabres coach, he already knows it's coming, Ken Usada. What was your opinion of him as a head coach?
Ken, nice guy. Didn't know nothing about coaches. Didn't know nothing MMA, even right now still. Nice guy.
Wait. He didn't know anything about MMA back then or even today still. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think people can learn,
Okay, not him.
I have brand new guys come and show up in my garage, and I teach them in like a few weeks. They'll learn a few tricks and, terms at least. Ken Yasuda didn't even know the difference from Kimura to omoplata or side control or mouth position. He didn't know the difference. So whatever.
Was that hard, like trying to listen to him as a head coach? I think I pretended pretty good. Yeah, here's the thing, Miguel. You can't fake like pretending to know something when you're dealing with Vlad. Like you can't. It's like yeah, I speak Chinese. No.
Yeah, exactly. And
no.
And it's nothing bad. Like I can't say that I can play violin, and I can pretend. Yeah, I know the music. I can play it, and okay, play it. Oops, sorry, my hand hurts. I can't do it. No, and I don't like people like that. And not necessarily don't like it. I mean, they do what they do. It's fine, but I mean, it just wasted time for me even to deal with it, to listen to somebody's bullshit.
So Vlad, we've got certain questions that are they're flagged. Anybody that ever fought for the Tokyo Sabres, they're getting asked about their head coach. So, I mean, you just kind of fell into that one. And Miguel, to kind of further state what kind of a human being this guy is, Tito Ortiz, as obnoxious as he is at this time. Do you remember he used to wear these t-shirts that would like be pointed at the other individual, just kind of making fun of them. Do you remember what his T-shirt said with yourself?
No, don't remember that, but I remember his obnoxiousness, and that's what I thought too. After fighting the guy, you have some respect for it. First of all, he's a legit fighter. It's not like he's, full of crap. He can prove it. And second of all, he was not that obnoxious after all. Like every time we see each other at the bar somewhere or whatever, he always say hi, give me a hug and say, what's up, buddy? So it was kind of cool. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say he's an asshole. He pretend to be. There's assholes are assholes, and the assholes, or normal guys pretend to be one because people wants to see that image. But okay. But he's to me, he's always a cool guy. He never was stuck up, and he always shake hands, and we're cool.
Vlad, I called everybody. I tried to get funny stories, drunken adventures. I really tried hard to get stuff on you, and there's nothing. Tito Ortiz's T-shirt was "Fighting for America." That was it. Like even a big mouth, dyed-haired, giant-headed human being like Tito Ortiz had nothing to say negative about that of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because Vlad, obviously a nice guy here, but also
Very nice.
Really confident in his abilities. And now you make him a young man. This guy was a scary guy. This guy could be if he wanted. If Vlad wanted to scare you, he could.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
not like a Halloween scare either. No, just telling you what he's going to do scare. Yeah.
Vlad, I don't know. Do you remember? You probably don't remember me, but I actually had to cancel a fight for you one time. And
which one was that?
I was running an Abu Dhabi World Championship. I believe it was the one in California, and you were set to compete, but you had a cut, and you had like a mouthpiece, like a big protection.
Yes.
That you looked like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
So we couldn't the metal thing. So
I remember that. No, still
I had
there,
to tell you,
right here.
yeah. So talk about what happened to your face and stuff, because he came in, he was ready to compete with a broken nose.
Yeah, that actually was pretty cool break because I never broke it again. I can breathe fine.
Yeah, you sound good. Yeah. Like we pick up on it. We've had Travis Luter. We're like, dude, you got to go get your septum fixed. You sound good. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, I'm sound good and it feels good, but my nose at the time was broken because my fight in the Amazon in Brazil against Carlos Beretta, and again heavyweight. No USADA there, and, and I can hear him next room. It was like only curtain divide us between us, the locker room. And I can hear his kicks, like whole building shakes, like do. He kicks the pads, and I'm like, that dude's gonna kick me in the face. And I keep my hands up all the time. You can see the fight if you want to see it. And he kicked me right in the face. My hands were up, but he went right through it, broke my nose. I'm still standing. He's laying down on the ground. He kicked so hard, he didn't turn. He ripped his knee, like ACL, everything.
Ooh. Damn.
I hit him a couple times in the face and won my fight. That's what pretty much he broke his leg on my nose. and then literally next week, I was supposed to do Abu Dhabi, and I'm like, I can't touch my nose even barely, but I'm feel fine, everything good except my face. I'm like, I can wear this like mask right there. And
what they give to wrestlers. Yeah, it's your traditional wrestling mask when a nose is broke.
Yes,
right?
yes. Exactly. And, for Miguel, I guess, or for, it was kind of like, it looked like a, cannibal Lecter, like that thing like that.
It's good for you, but would you want to wrestle somebody for you? Like, let's say you had to wrestle.
No, I understand. I try. I did my try, and you did your part and said, no, it's okay. It's fine.
See, he's a nice guy. And he was
fantastic.
It was very, very nice. But we were worried because he also had a reputation as such a competitor, that you don't want to cancel people's fights. We had conversations about letting you do it and stuff. Now, while
Yeah.
we're on the Abu Dhabi subject, I wanted to ask you, did you know Alexander Savko? Because he was
Yes,
in a
absolutely. He was a good friend of mine, and he was a good friend with Dave Schultz at the time, and Rico Chiaperelli. I think they wrestled together all the time, and yeah, it was a good friend. And again, tragic story.
Yeah,
Died.
yeah. He actually, for the fans out there, Alexander Savko was a Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. He was a member of the Abu Dhabi's Combat Club's team originally that, lived in Abu Dhabi, him and a couple other Russian fighters, a couple of Bulgarian guys, but he was the centerpiece, obviously. And he actually died of a heart attack competing, on the mat. And so, you hear about boxing tragedies like that. This is every bit the equal tragedy, and still about 40, young man.
Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Things happen, and
Yeah.
speaking of Abu Dhabi, my big upset was maybe sorry, my second attempt to do Abu Dhabi was, and you said I don't hate anybody. In a way, I was upset because IFL didn't let me compete in Abu Dhabi in between fights, which is silly. They said, "Oh, you're under contract," which is we were waiting, and eventually they vanished. They filed for bankruptcy, so they didn't allow me to fight, and they didn't give me a fight. I'm like, come on, guys. So that was kind of crappy.
So the IFL prevented you from doing Abu Dhabi the next year.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were dying, Mike. I mean, that's a dick move.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. So we talked about some of the dark underbelly of mixed martial arts. We'd be remiss not to bring up Amar Sulov. Amar Sulov or Suluev?
Amar Suluev? Yes.
Did you ever have any interactions with him?
With them, you mean who?
Amar Suluev.
Well, actually, you could ask it. How about the whole Fedor Vadim Finkelstein group? Did they ever approach you for management? Because that was the Red Devil team, and a lot of those guys, I think, were from what you described before, from the other side.
Yes, and at that time, already in the United States, and they have their own Russian connection, we'll say, and I talked to them. We were friendly, but we were never interacting on that level.
That's smart. That's smart. So you were the coach on both the United States and Russia's Olympic teams. What was the difference in styles or training of the two systems?
Coaches had more time with kids, and coaches were getting paid doesn't matter what, so they were more art into it. Of course, you will get more money if somebody on Olympic level, but to get there, it's a long run. In the US, it's very quick, short, especially like they say high school. You have a group of kids, train them hard, show them a couple moves, they win a couple matches, maybe you wrestle next year, maybe next year. That's it. You go to college, you have 4-year eligibility. Maybe you're going to wrestle 1 year, maybe a red short one. So it's a very short kind of like, and a season is a few months. In Russia, season is 5-year season. There's no seasons. Sometimes you have a cycle, it's like Olympic cycle. There's Olympics. Every year they have World Championship. Every year you have European Championship and the tournaments in between. But there's no such a race. There's no such a demand. It's like, oh, you have to win. You have to win. Sometimes you have to win to qualify for Olympics or for World Championship. And so in a way, and technique comes handy because people care about how you do it, not exactly what you do it. You know what I mean? If it makes sense. Which emerges a lot in still, like if you do WCAA, it still has if you take NCAA style, that's what you want. You have kids, you have a score, you want to win championship. In Russia, it doesn't exist. It's more It's a long run. It's a 7-year. It's a culture. Yes.
Yeah, that's what Mark Schultz told me. He's like, it's not technique, it's not different placement. He says it's a culture. He's like, the Russians, in a lot of the Arab countries, it's a part of their society. It's a very important part of their culture. We're coming up on a 2-hour mark, Miguel. So Gregory Rodchenkov was a Russian scientist, worked with the Olympic team in Russia, obviously featured in the movie Icarus. What was your opinion of that situation involving him?
Using steroids and drugs being, controversy or topic for, any sports, including MMA. And the countries who had advanced medicine were definitely, using the first. First we'll use Russia, Germany, US, then Brazil and China. Countries like Russia and China, they have access to athletes, results of the blood, urine, all the stuff
at a very young age.
Exactly. And they monitoring. I was monitoring, not just so I can use steroids, no, because it's part of training. And now on a big high level, that's what people do. They knew in 80s, based on my AKG and blood tests, urine sample, what I need, what I'm missing in my diet. Can I train harder or should take it easy? Because you'll be surprised. Some people and kids were eating, but coach would come and say, hey, you have to take a couple of days off because your heart rate is, not dropping down, stuff like that. So, and using steroids were able to, it's never been forced. I don't have an idea that people are like, okay, here, you have to use steroids. People start using it or use it often after injury. When you break the leg and you can't walk for a few seconds, you get atrophy. You use for that. People use that for to not to get hurt. And that, I believe, in sport MMA, including wrestling. And I remember some of the guys were using it because had access. In my experience, track and field were using it. We saw it with my own eyes. Because if you take the thing and you throw it or iron or you jump, it gives you power. You don't have to, not a lot of thinking involved. Weightlifting.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about the American side, the Russian side, or both sides?
Both. I never see Americans. We don't leave it. But let's say in Russia, in a village, we have a training camp. We have fencing team, we have a track and field, we have boxing team, we have this. Track and field, always use it. Weightlifter, yes. Wrestlers, boxers, not necessarily. First of all, you have to lose weight, so it's kind of already difficult. You want to gain weight. Sometimes people need to bump up, then you use it. It definitely, I've been witness that it affects your thinking. So decision-making, it's very crucial in mixed martial arts. So if you're really on steroids, you look dumb pretty much if you that way. Maybe they have different steroids.
Maybe overly aggressive too, rather than slow down and think.
Well, I think Jeremy Horn put it real well, where he said, if you're taking steroids, you're probably worried about muscle and physique more than your technique. And he feels very confident that technique is the most important thing. Steroids wouldn't even affect, a good technique. Is that
exactly
accurate?
It is accurate. And the technique and decision-making, it's very important. And the only steroids can do good is to allow you to train longer and harder without getting injured. So that advantage you definitely have. A good example, for instance, Jon Jones knockout with Cormier with a left switch kick. You don't need to do that steroids. It was not the hard kick. So he didn't get that kick from steroids, but he was training for that. Maybe he used it, that's what it's for. But I don't believe the steroids give you advantage to kick harder like that,
Okay, so you bring up Jon Jones. When he is pulsating, when Novinsky, who spent 5 years going through the garbage of a bicyclist after his last race just to try to prove he was using steroids, when he comes forward and says, Jon Jones is just pulsating, this is just something that happens a year and a half later. Do you think Jeff Novinsky may have lost some credibility in most people's eyes?
Absolutely. And I
you.
don't believe enough. I fought Jon Jones, and I'm still a fan of his. I wish I would see him fight, and we talk sometimes. I wish his head would be more straighter than that, because I really want to see him fight. And
do you think he was using designer steroids, and that it just the pulsating effect was just maybe his scientist may have got the mix a little off?
Maybe again, like I'm not.
Maybe.
My assumptions. I'm just saying that steroids sometimes in mixed martial arts, it's not the big, huge advantage. And I think USADA does a good job to checking right now. And
I'm not sure about that, Vlad.
No,
not
not
sure.
a good job. I'm saying,
I'm
I'm
not sure
sorry.
about
I agree with that too. I think they don't
Yeah.
do a good job, but they do something to prevent it. But
They do something. I agree.
yeah, they do something.
They do something. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's a very good point. I like that. I'm going to use
On a
that.
personal level, I almost prefer the Russian system because, like you said, look, in the United States, I think this is what Vlad was saying too. In the United States, your medical records are private. So, like, your coach and people involved in the structure of your wrestling don't have access to your medical records. But in Russia, the doctor's actually behaving like a doctor and monitoring his blood and monitoring his things so that they can give him supplements and things. And then from there, maybe steroids. But just that care is a relationship with your doctor. I feel like the American doctors all they do is fill out forms. It's like, yeah, PKG check, done. Just my opinion.
No, absolutely. I agree with it. And then that's why I start, seeing the UFC creating this whole institutes training over there, and where they have recovery, physical therapy, and all the stuff. I think it's a big growth for sport MMA, because it was very under the health of the athletes, including wrestling, because there's no money involved. So wrestlers just be a tough guy. That's it.
The toughest
There's
in the
no
world.
trainers, nothing. All the trainers were the football team. They're there. All the football players train like a stars because they make money, because even on the college level, they already, they agents are looking out for them. So they've been take care of their blood and everything. If they have mini injury, you have trainers to take care of you. When wrestling, just be tougher, walk it out.
Yeah. Dude, they're the toughest athletes in the world, for sure. Why did Randy Couture leave the Raw team? He was one of the first people to leave.
What do you mean relieve?
He left.
Leave. He left first, then Henderson left. I think Randy Couture will stick around. Again, Randy's a nice guy. He didn't want to upset Riccro, and Randy did his thing. And eventually, I think because Henderson was going more and more away from Riccro and getting in the fight, and Randy got his own manager. And, I don't know. I love Riccro. Good, great coach. Brother to me. Maybe not the best manager, or at the time, I don't know. He's kind of like
it's hard
running
to
like
say. Yeah, you don't know the playing field. It's just, and fighters always want more, and it's hard to tell a fighter no. And
be a good manager and be a good coach. I realize it myself now. It's like herding cats. They go different directions. Everybody wants to do different things, and it's a tough. And Rico's like, I think he was overwhelmed and kind of like, my way or highway. And it's not just happened to him. I can see people doing it right now. I can talk to my other guy.
Milicic, Lions Den. It happens to the best gyms in the world.
Jackson.
Jackson. Oh, look at Jackson. It's a mess. We do a deep dive on Jackson. You guys
not that long ago, I met one of the fights. I met my friend of mine. I fought him too, Elliot Marshall. He's got a big school in Colorado, and he said same thing. He had complained about fighters. He said, like, I fire half of the fighters on the team because herding cats. They have their own ego. They have their own agenda. And
I think the strongest minds and the hardest people in terms of the fight community to have to say no to, not even give bad news. They can take bad news, just no, is the wrestler.
Yes, and your original question was about Randy Couture and Henderson and Riccro and Raw team. That's what happened. That's what happened right now with the Greg Jackson team and everybody else.
Now let me ask you, we've talked obviously Russia and California. I don't know that there are many athletes in the world that have had access to so many people as yourself. And like, you're very respectful and you're also a peer, so like, you came over from Russia pretty complete and you were teaching wrestling and they were teaching you. So who's the best guy? Who's the guy that you found to be the most technical guy? Did you ever run in? Is it Paulson, or did you ever meet Gokor or Hickson? Like, what are the legends like for real?
In my experience, whoever I touched with, who I was wrestled with, Paulson was, everybody's different. And I learned from a lot of it, starting with Dave Schultz, like you guys mentioned it. And
Trilisa. You guys call him Trilisa.
And I learned from Eric Paulson. Eric Paulson was not the sparring partner. Sometimes he would to play around, but he was getting older and he didn't want to spar. So I learned more from Josh Barnett then. I learned a lot from Fabrecio Werdum, and he was sparring partner and teacher. So those guys, I can't say who's better or not. I learned from Wildcard and those guys in boxing. And I learned kickboxing and striking from Anthony Hardong. So, but he's very mellow. He's very slow and nice. To me, too nice sometimes. So everybody have the advantages and disadvantages, And who's the most have better technique? I'm looking at him right now. I like Francis Ngannou. I learned from him from his last fight. I learned that in the heavyweight, losing the fight, getting tired in the first round, you still can redeem yourself and get your shit together and go and fight 500 rounds in heavyweight and actually doing pretty well. There's no complaints. I think those guys brought the bar very high for heavyweights. Mm-hmm. I like Sean O'Malley. He's good.
He's very good. He's very entertaining.
I like Oliveira.
So Vlad, like, and we're closing up. We broke the 2-hour mark. So in terms of like old school boxing, I love watching Jersey Joe Walcott. There's a couple documentaries, little 7-8 minute documentaries about his movement and about how he throws the timing off of his opponent by just kind of lulling them into his rhythm and then changing the tempo. And I saw you do that with Pedro Rizzo in that fight, like throwing his rhythm off, just bullying him. Man, that was a masterpiece, brother.
Well, absolutely. Again, Pedro Rizzo, you mentioned a name.
Legend.
Good guy. I felt his kicks and I felt that how not to get kicked after that and start learning how not to get, because I thought before then I can take it, but nope, can't take those.
You're like, I think every person that's ever fought him says that. Like Randy said it, Coleman's like, oh dude, changed the shape of my leg. Couture has, said that publicly as well. Rizzo is special. He's probably the greatest athlete never to win a UFC world title. Like, yeah. I think Igor Vovchanchyn kind of falls into that category, Gray Maynard, but Pedro Rizzo, in my opinion, between him and Igor, are the top two guys never to win a world title. So, Miguel,
the good thing, it's never over. We're still learning and still doing it. I'm not going to write a book about myself too soon because I'm still living my life and, trying to learn. It's so much. Life is good, and MMA too.
Yeah, no, and thank you for also teaching, because we've just heard your story, like a brief story, and it's as amazing as I could have imagined. Because a true like you would say, I think a citizen of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you,
so
guys.
Vlad, when we have our people on here, we hope for brutal honesty, and we try to lead them down a path to where we can kind of get the answers that people have always wanted, rather than just kind of reading it on a Wikipedia page. We kind of get the step-by-step. You absolutely provided that for us. And man, truly, I admired you as a fighter, as a man. You took risks, changed countries. Man, thank you so much, man. We greatly appreciate it.
And is he frozen? Let's see if he comes back. Hopefully he's cracking a little vodka with the wife.
Here we go.
Oh, there
No,
he's back.
yes. Start over again. Come on.
So
Because now you get
So
me
Vlad-
excited.
so in essence, like you some people in life, like you only go through this thing one time, and the risks that you took in order to have a better life or opportunity is very foreign to us. Leaving your country, having $100 in your pocket, and it's just it's your story is incredible. We try to get these questions to bring that out of people, and man, Vlad, you're an absolutely fascinating guy. Like I can't begin to explain to you how much I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, guys. Thank you for keeping this MMA going.
Yeah. No,
Fun.
so much still to learn, like you said, and it's still changing and evolving. But we're also worried about the history, and you just gave us a big chunk, man. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, Mike, Lights Out podcast, and I think we did it again. I think that we took a wrestler and won him over. I think Vlad likes us, and I'm proud of that because, man, what a story.
He's such like a level-headed guy, and he's usually like very measured, like high-end polished athletes. They're in a box and they don't come too far out of it. Do you know what I mean? And they don't really come too far about it unless it's absolutely intended. And this interview took a while to get. Like we had him lined up. We started to do it. His job got in the way. Life got in the way on our end. And we were finally able to meet up. But the little bit that we did with him, I think it left like an impression of what it is we want in the interview. And he started right away with what it is we were trying to get to within like the 30, 40 minutes of what we couldn't air a few days prior. Man, stories like that, man. It's a different level.
Yeah, and I think he hinted at it too. I think if we had gotten him 20 years earlier, maybe a different interview where, some of that wrestling arrogance and stuff may have come out a little bit. I don't know. But I think he hinted too that he feels wiser and that he's still learning and things like that. And that's wisdom. A smart guy, a tough guy, and a wise guy. So I'm impressed. I was impressed before and more impressed now.
We finally got to know him. Like I've watched a few of his other interviews, and Miguel, you were the one that really pushed for this. Like we all kind of have these people that are kind of in our stratosphere, and then we just pull one in and get it out. This was your pick, and we've been on kind of an Olympic kick, like on here and off of here. Like we really enjoy Olympic athletes, particularly wrestlers, and man, dude, I like that. That was really fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, other than liking, sharing, and subscribing, which doesn't appear to be happening with our channel, we're working on a couple little side projects right now for our Clips channel. It's been kind of sitting dormant, and we're going to surprise you with them. But I'm telling you this right now: once they start rolling, there's levels to this game. I think we're upping it on what it is we're producing for the Clips channel. Miguel?
History is history, and I think that we took a little break and we came back, and I think, we've done Steve Nelson, Matyushenko qualifies as an old school guy, Mark Schultz, definitely. So I think we came back to our wheelhouse, and I think that it's resulted in. I think me and you got a little, like, I don't know if we got better or, the other guys got used to us or whatever, but I think we produced good interviews, and Lytle hasn't, been able to join us since the comeback because of schedule. And just when he comes back, we're going to be flying, I think.
Absolutely. And, ladies and gentlemen, podcasts like this are opening up other doors for us as well. Miguel, I don't know if you want to feel comfortable talking about what you've got going on, but this interview drops on Monday, obviously, God willing. And the FAC is going to be in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I'm going to be doing a color commentary for it. So my first UFC fight pass, a little of it had to do with this. A lot of it, my Midwest grind in regards to being at shows every weekend. And Miguel.
Much deserved. And I got an 11-year-old suspended from school. That's what I got going on. Not ready to announce that.
I got a baby girl coming. Just found out. We knew she was pregnant, but got a girl coming. It's
wow.
The price you pay. So I got another daughter, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
Miguel. Question.
Go ahead, Mike. Ask your question, Morty.
Are you dipping the toe back in the pool of mixed martial arts? Are you kind of, I'm not saying getting back in, but is your foot going to get a little bit wet?
Mike, right now I'm consumed with speaking and talking to the powers that be so that your daughter doesn't look like you. That's right now where I'm at.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is what you refer to as a deflection.
I haven't made a match in MMA in more than a decade. So, I'm sure that the type of the business has changed, and we'll see what can or can't be done. There's a possibility that I might match make again. I don't think it'll be like the old days where, there were a couple of shows with matchmakers that were active and you got to be a little bit of a personality. I think now it's going to be a little more of a working grind and stuff. Fighters are much more right. Amateurs are more ready and, planning their careers out and stuff now. It's no longer, hey, show who you got for me to fight. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. But I expect, I really expect to be anonymous. It doesn't really matter, who I am, and we'll see if any of the fighters. At least we'll have a new crop of fighters to interview in our old age, Mike. That's all.
So Miguel, August 13th, Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro is going to be in the Chicagoland area. This guy is hosting that event. It's going to be a gi tournament. If you guys want to come out, say hello, great. If you know anybody into jiu-jitsu in terms of competing, it would be a huge, and I mean this sincerely, a huge amount of gratitude if you could pass along ajptour.com. There's that's where you register. And anybody from this show that knows somebody in the Midwest, if they could share it, if you're listening to this, by helping ajptour.com get registrants for the Chicagoland area show, dude, it helps us out. So I'll thank you in advance for doing that. Miguel, side projects for the Clips channel. I think it's going to make some waves.
Yeah, I think the first one you're going to see is Mike. You want to tell him about Charlie's project?
Yeah, go ahead.
Charlie Smith. It sounds like a witness protection program name. You know what I mean? Charlie Smith. But this guy has been around for 10 years, and you can look him up. He's got one of the Sterling MMA collections that's out there. There are a couple of people that have been working on him, all along, kind of thing. And he's one of the guys that's a real dreamer, and he's really advancing this project in terms of, collecting and the possibility of opening up a museum type of place to showcase
Brick and mortar
things.
museum. Yeah.
And we'll see how far it goes, but he's got memorabilia and he's come to us because of the historic aspects to do a show called Mixed Martial Artifacts. And we're going to be just talking about memorabilia. It's fun. I love that stuff. I used to collect records when I was a kid, matchboxes when I was a kid, everybody collected comics and crap. And this is right up a collector's alley. And, Charlie's a guy that he's put a lot of love into it. He's put a lot of love into it. We've filmed a few episodes. You're going to see them in the coming weeks. And, just some of the stuff, it's right in the wheelhouse of the Lights Out podcast and our hardcore fans from the old days.
Yeah. So we did a little dry run last night just to kind of see. We got to gel. We got to understand the ebb and flow, kind of tighten it up. It didn't need much work. Like, we were all kind of on the same page. So I'm hoping within the next 10 days, we can debut that, as well as, for you guys at home that don't know, which I don't think there's many, Miguel was the man of ADCC for about a decade. And we're going to be going through tournaments, stories, fighters' careers, trajectories. We're going to be concentrating on Euler, I apologize. Euler Gracie, his road to greatness, slaying of which by Eddie Bravo, Mark Kerr, rise, fall of Mark Kerr. We're going to be brutally honest with what was taking place behind the scenes, how the tournament laid out, and Miguel's insight. I finished these. We've taped a few of these. It leaves my head spinning because it's like there's so much that took place behind the scenes that many people aren't even aware of. And Miguel is giving us the opportunity to kind of, talk about them.
Yeah, the Abu Dhabi is a mystical tournament. It's one that there's, so many stories about, and some are true and as outrageous as they are, and big, bombastic as they are, they're probably true. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that's nonsense. And I think somebody who was there, and I was there for many of the early tournaments. I missed only the first one. I think as an observer, I got to see a lot. I was taken in by the patrons of the show and asked to assist. And I was, I was kept around for almost a decade because, we got it. We had, the goal was to make a sport. It wasn't, to get the Sheik's guy to win or anything like that. So it really was a magical time. And right now it's changed so much and gotten so big. That's what they wanted all along. I'm proud and happy to have been a part of the inception of that. But the inception of that, you run the risk of losing a lot of history if somebody doesn't speak up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to be doing is breaking down some of the people that were in the tournaments that fell astray of the law. And there's also tournaments that are incomplete in regards to the competitor names. And these tournaments took place in Abu Dhabi. So a plane ticket was purchased, a hotel, had been arranged for, and they still don't know all of the names in certain parts of the tournament. And Miguel kind of helps decipher that. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and Matyushenko, the deep dives, obviously that's the bread and butter of the Lights Out podcast, and we are delivering. Matyushenko delivered today. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was cooperative. If there's a time we had to postpone, and he adjusted. He was happy to do it, and I don't think he missed a beat. I'm like you. I'm buzzed over that interview.
I'm pumped, dude. Yeah. So wait, Miguel. So we initially interviewed him, and he made the He made the fatal mistake of thinking this is only going to be like a 5-minute interview. Do you know what I mean? He's a coach at a gym. He's done a million of these. 98% of reporters don't even know how to hold a conversation or understand what questions to ask other than here, let me help you matchmake, Dana, at the press conferences, even though the fights just took place, rather than asking actual questions. And I think he caught the vibe. There was a couple of delays when we were going to redo it. But when we said we were going to start from the beginning, rather than use what we had, he took full advantage of that and told us about his immigration story, which is probably something he's only told at a bar or to a friend or to his companion. And when he started with that, I just said, dude, he gets it. He gets what we want.
Yeah. No, the first interview, he was in his car and his phone speaker didn't work. So he had like a loose speaker that was affecting our sound. And he was a damn good interview the first time. Like, we wouldn't have scrapped it if it hadn't been for the sound. I mean, we got more out of it the second time, which, as we grow as a podcast, maybe we'll have more prep time and people will devote more time to coming on as well. But yeah, he's an all-star guest. He's my all-star
You know what else
guest.
helped too? Like the Olympic and Russian questions. We kind of started with that, and he was not touching it, but he realized he was in deep water and he had to pay attention. So this one, we took those questions and we put them at the end, and he was very telling. Like, all of that Olympic information that we got, we were thinking, we're just going to concentrate on MMA. Let's just kind of throw this out there. We kind of held that to the end, and we got much more mileage out of it at the end than we had initially in the beginning, Miguel.
Yeah, no, and as we close out here, because we're going long here on the ending, but one thing I want to mention is, you're talking about a Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian kid that grew up over there. And, from the Lights Out podcast too, we didn't talk anything about what was going on in the news or anything like that. And I'd like to keep it that way. I'm sure he has an opinion. I'm sure we all do. And I'm sure we could devote a podcast to it. But it would have taken away from what we got. So that's how I got it.
It's not about that. It's about him. Yeah.
So
excellent.
thank you very much, everybody. If you're still with us, thank you very much. And comment, like, subscribe, share, and give Mike a shout out for his UFC Fight Pass appearance. We're very proud of him.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.